everybody, I'm the BTC Reaper, and my goal on this channel is to teach you how to reap the rewards of trading, whether price is going up or down. Over on total for the daily, it does look like we do have a little bit of rejection. We did have some indecisiveness, so we tried to gain some strength, and then we ultimately fell flat, got rejected, pushed back down. Our stochastic pushed down as well. RSI is losing strength as a result. Our VWAP does have a bit of a bearish trend with those lower lows and lower highs, so I would watch that. We'll continue to drop that momentum, which will continue to drop our money flow as well and continue to bring price action down. So over on the total, looks like we kind of fell away from our Fibonacci area. So what we can do here is unlock it. Oop, did not mean to delete it. Unlock it. So we're at 116. We want to try and not move that from the 116 area and then lock it back down. And that's how you readjust your Fibonacci levels. So we do have a little bit of a rejection here on the daily. Over on the 1 hour, it looks like we have lower highs and higher lows. So this could try to carve out a symmetrical triangle, which would be coming from a push down. Remember, that would be more of a bear pendant. Actually, I cannot connect these bottoms in a way that would create a triangle, but I would still watch out for lower highs with a lower low. If we get lower low here, we could end up rejecting. Otherwise, this could act as more like a descending wedge, where maybe we have this falling bottom and these falling tops, so that's a bit of a descending wedge there. And since this bottom isn't flat, that gives us a wedge and not a descending triangle. Major difference, because a descending wedge does push you up, where a descending triangle does push you down. Now that push up would be wherever these points connect, so you'd have to pull these lines all the way out here, and typically your break up would be right about 8 billion, 8.5 billion. So nothing very major unless we got like a early break up. Usually after that third touch to the top would be where you could get your break up. So I would estimate maybe somewhere around here, and that'd be about that midway point of the MPP. So that's how that MPP is calculating our ranges right now. If we were to break out way up here, that's where you would get that higher range. So I would go more for the middle at best case scenario. Our stochastic is starting to pull back. VWAP is breaking bearish. Momentum is dropping, and that money flow, our momentum does have a red dot, signaling that does want to continue lower. And if that does continue lower, money flow will remain in the red, and price action will continue to fall. So you may be wondering what caused us to fall today, and we did have some negative geopolitical news. Can't really say exactly what it is because I don't want to get banned or anything. So if you want to know what that is, join us in the Discord, but it is pretty negative. You can find out with an easy search. It's probably going to be like the 6th article you see now, though. But over on Bitcoin futures for the daily, we did have that rising channel and we did end up rejecting. So this did create that gap scenario that we said to watch for over the weekend. So the ideal move from here, like we said this weekend, would be to fill our lower gap, create a higher low on this daily time frame, and then bounce back to fill our higher gap and continue beyond it. At that point, then we could revisit that 103. Right now, I'm saying the 103 is probably a far shot unless we're able to see some sort of MPP start to project us higher. Right now, I think the next MPP is about to kind of start to form here and show up. Well, actually, it did already, so we do have one projecting us down. So that downward projection is giving us about 85K. That would be a break of the value area high and a fall below that gapped area. So I would exercise caution, but overall, if we do end up bouncing, there's an 80% chance that could be a higher low. But remember, this MPP just formed, and you don't want to go when they just formed because they're not as reliable. You want to give them a little bit, but usually by then, the move may be already made. Our momentum is trying to push down. Again, that's why you use multiple indicators. That's why we're not just using the MPP or just using the momentum or VWAP. That's why we bring it all together. But our stochastic is starting to weaken. That is going to push that RSI lower if it does not not reverse. We have our orange line above the blue, which gives us a bearish cross. Momentum is falling with a double red dot, which signals it does want to continue lower, providing that VWAP continues to push down below our neutral area of that zero. If it does, we will continue getting lower highs with lower lows, which will again continue to bring down momentum, which in turn will bring this money flow, that little green wave, back into the red, showing that we have more selling pressure than we do buying pressure, which is going to be negative for price action. Now, over on Bitcoin for the 1 hour, I would watch very closely here because we may have a bear flag. It's a very narrow flag, but remember, that doesn't really mean a whole lot because you take from where your move started down to the bottom and apply that from the bottom down to get your breakdown point of around 90K. That would be a little concerning because we are very close to that 93K that we said we could end up pulling back toward on Bitcoin, and a break below that would be a little more worrisome because then we may start to tumble below that gapped area, and that's where that 80K could come into play, and that would be a little more worrisome for me unless we get a strong bounce with positive geopolitical news. But over on the 1 hour, our stochastic is pushing away. We do have that bearish cross, which is weakening that RSI. Our VWAP does want to break that neutral. Momentum is turned around with a red dot. So if that VWAP continues to push down, momentum will continue to push down as well. And money flow will go from green into the red, showing we have selling pressure, which will in turn weaken those higher time frames. So over on Bitcoin for the daily, it does look like we have an indecisive candle. We did try to push down toward the bottom of like this kind of consolidation range back here, but we did push up. So that is positive, but again, we do want to see a rejection here because ideally we would fill that gap and then get a bounce from futures. Over on the 1 day though, stochastic is pushing down. We do have the orange above blue, so that was that bearish cross. It is leading price lower. RSI is weakening as a result. VWAP has a lower high. I would watch. We have a slightly lower low technically, so we do have a bearish trend. That bearish trend will continue to bring momentum down, which could cause our money flow to break into the red and continue to drop price action down. So I would exercise caution there. Over on the 1 hour, it does look like we are trying to fight our way up with some higher lows, so we need higher highs from here. Right now, we could again make that wedge, which may push us up in the long term, where you have this falling bottom and a falling, actually we don't really have a falling top, so this really isn't a pattern I like to trade. There's a thing called a megaphone pattern that you can draw when your lines start to split apart like that, but usually when I've drawn them, they don't play out. So over on the 1 hour, we do have a long lower shadow candle here, followed by this strong green candle. This could be positive for us if followed by another strong green candle that breaks this resistance area right around that 95K. If we can break and hold above that, then we could continue a new bullish trend that could try to take us up. The MPP does project around 96K. There's a 70% probability. I would go more on the MPPs we see on Bitcoin because they have more data than the futures MPPs do. So this does look positive, providing we can continue higher. Now, we did fill our last MPP projection where there was a 50% chance of sticking right around the 94K level, but if we see a lower high, I would watch out for that drop to the 92, which there was a 50% chance of seeing. So that would be how that lower MPP projection could still come true if we get our rejection here. However, if we break beyond this resistance area, that's where we would get our next MPP's higher area, or at least try to push back toward that 95 consolidation range, at which point hopefully we see other bullish indicators. So over on graph for the daily, it does look like we are pushing down here as well. So we are breaking away. There was a lot of sell-off though. So remember, when you get heavy sell-off, you do typically retrace. Just like we got a very quick buy-in in the last few days, last few weeks. And now we're kind of just retracing some of our gains. Not the end of the world. Stochastic is starting to push down. RSI is weakening. That VWAP does have lower lows with lower highs, so that is bringing momentum lower, which wants to bring that money flow deeper into the red, showing we have further selling pressure. And as that selling pressure continues to mount up, we will continue to sell off, seeing strong red candles. So over on the 1 hour, might be able to draw a similar pattern that we drew on Bitcoin in total, but I'll leave you to your own. Remember, TA is more of an art form, so draw what you will. But over on the 1 hour, we do have, again, a resistance right around this 9172, and we do want to break that. We have a potential higher low, which, if followed by a higher high, could push us to that 937. There's a 56% probability, so again, not having probability on your side there, but if that VWAP can continue to make a bounce here and remain bullish, momentum will continue higher, money flow will continue to push up, and price action can continue forward as well. But if we end up seeing a rejection here, just like we said on Bitcoin, then that's where our other MPP projection of that 847 could end up coming true. So over on XRP for the daily, does look like we did reject here as well pretty quickly. So again, I would be looking for some sort of bullish momentum at the end of this. Again, it doesn't have to exceed your sell-off. Like here, we got very quick sell-off and we did get a bounce back forward, but we haven't really reclaimed that area that we lost. Our stochastic is starting to push down, RSI is starting to weaken, and VWAP is in a bearish trend with lower highs and lower lows, pushing momentum lower, weakening that money flow, which will continue to push price lower if lower time frames do not reverse. Over on our 1 hour, we do have some descending tops, descending bottoms. You might be able to draw a really big wedge or something here if you really wanted to, so we'll have to kind of draw that out. Yeah, you may be able to draw some sort of descending wedge, which, remember, a descending wedge would be a bullish pattern, but with it being this large, I would say it's going to take quite a while if that were to play out. But remember, it is on a lower time frame, so when you have these patterns on a lower time frame, if you get bullish momentum on a higher time frame, that can invalidate it. Now again, with the descending wedge, it is a bullish pattern. Name is deceiving. We cover that in Mastering the Trade, so visit that playlist on YouTube. But typically you would break out right around the peak, so we would break out to around 222, not too much higher than we are right now. But if we got some sort of early breakout, that's where that MPP is projecting that 227 area. So I would go more for the later breakout. If you want to go a little higher, you say it breaks out somewhere around here. Again, that could still be around that max gain, but that would be dependent on an early breakup, which you would want to watch these indicators and watch for them to flip into bullish territory for that to happen. Again, you'd want to see that breakthrough, a retest, a bounce, and then a continuation up. And on that continuation up, that's when you do your pattern trading usually. Stochastic is starting to pull back. Our RSI is weakening. That VWAP does have a lower high, so I would watch out for a lower low. If we get a lower low, momentum will start to fall away, which will cause that money flow to deepen in the red, showing we have further selling pressure and invalidate any kind of bullish probabilities. And that's where that lower MPP projection of that $2 would come in. Remember, we've been warning about that $2, $1.90 as a strong support area. Now, last but not least, we have Anchor for the day. We are seeing a little bit of a long upper shadow candle, so if followed by a strong red candle, this would show that bulls tried to push us up, but bears stepped in, gained control, and slammed us back down. That VWAP does have a bearish trend, which is weakening that momentum, bringing money flow into the red. Our stochastic and RSI are dropping, which is starting to push us down as well. Over on the 1 hour, it does look like we do have some gaps to the upside. Remember, gaps have an 80% chance to fill, so while we are seeing some sell-off, this could be a decent buying opportunity for people who have been on the sidelines, or a decent DCA opportunity for those who have not bought. Should I buy BOINC right now, or is the market going to decrease? Right now, I would say the market does look like we are kind of at an influx point. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, we did mention some geopolitical things that affected us that kind of made us reject today. If it weren't for that, I think we would have seen a stronger push up today. But ideally, we would see more push down to fill where we covered that futures gap. So I would rewind to that part of the video, watch that futures gap. That is going to be a decent area where we could pull back to, and then if we got bounced forward from there, then we could try to see some like retests of our previous highs. But I would warn against meme coins. They're highly volatile and they're very speculative. They're driven by their community. if their community just ups and leaves, you're going to be left holding, and that has happened to some people. I would advise not buying like meme coins or celebrity coins. They're going to all fall into that kind of category. That's why a lot of people got burned by the Trump coin and they're all mad about, but you shouldn't buy Trump or a Hawk2 coin. That's my opinion. But over on the 1 hour, our stochastic is starting to weaken, RSI is starting to pull down, that VWAP is in the bearish territory, causing momentum to continue lower. If that continues, money flow will continue into the red, and we would see that lower MPP projection of that 1744. But if the rest of the market were to push up, I would say we may reject these MPP probabilities that are showing and at least try to retest this previous consolidation area of that 1868, at which point, if we can flip that, then we could start filling those higher gaps. Thank you for watching tonight's video. Hit the like and subscribe and join us in the Discord. Have a great night.